Hello everyone, this is the recorded visual merchandising course, and we are going to look today at digital VM trends. This is going to really help you in regards to your e-commerce and looking at social media and how we can combine the key messages that you're implementing in store and be able to translate them online too. So that's what we're going to have a look at during this workshop. I hope you enjoy it. So the first area we are going to look at is we're just going to be recapping, and I'll just move down our camera so you can see the page. We're just going to be looking at how we can convert those key practical principles that we talked about on our classes, which we carried out in the lesson, where we're looking at the 4 key principles. So on our live classes, we were looking at symmetrical, asymmetrical, repetition, and alternation. So I'm just going to explain to you and just show you how you can then take all of those principles in a practical sense and convert them and utilize them and implement them online too. So here we go, everyone. As usual, if you do have any questions after any of the recorded classes, you can always email me or you can contact me via the Mighty Network app. So our first one is going to be looking at symmetrical. So that was probably one of our most popular principles that we talked about on our practical classes, where we were looking at the sort of live concept of symmetrical and how it works. So psychologically, it's the same elements that anything that we see as a sort of symmetrical layout or pattern, whether we're going to see that pattern, whether we're having a look at it in store or online, if we're creating this symmetrical pattern and template, it seems to allow our customer to see the information, whether it's text or picture content, with ease, and allows us to look at everything really quickly and easily. So all of this is just a screenshot from an example just to showcase this principle. So this is Erford, who have done quite a very symmetrical layout on their homepage. So this is having a look at a symmetrical layout via an e-commerce homepage. So we're always trying to make sure that you've kind of got that sort of height element, which obviously you'd automatically have with the header banner. If you can try and implement quite a sort of symmetrical layout and kind of placement on the page, that tends to work particularly well. Okay, so that's the symmetrical and how it converts online. We're next going to look at our asymmetrical. So asymmetric, as we kind of know from obviously some of our other classes, is more of a dressing principle that we will tend to only use in inspirational areas only. So obviously typically you see it in windows or display cases, or maybe if you're creating more of a sort of display area in store. It's more of a sort of dressed way of presenting product, particularly very popular on Instagram. So apps like Instagram, you see a lot of asymmetrical groups, and I actually saw a really good example of this earlier on. I was having a look at the Liberty Instagram page, and they had lots of great examples of asymmetrical product compositions. Works better with obviously 3D product, as we see here with Harrods. This is the Harrods Christmas page from their e-commerce, but it was also a sort of picture and kind of image that they shared to Instagram. And we can see where I've put the kind of green pyramid, that you've got this kind of asymmetrical half pyramid happening here. So this is quite a good shot composition if you want to showcase a kind of range of product. And obviously we've been talking quite a lot on the courses about trying to sell and upsell a package of product. All of this is a really good example of how they've taken everything out of the hamper, so you can really see the contents of this Harrods hamper here. So this might also be, you know, quite a good idea for you all at Christmas if you're having to think about trying to showcase maybe items which are packaged like Christmas hampers, perhaps take the product out of the package and actually show it in the image itself. I really like how they've used the pieces of wood to be able to create this kind of sort of raised height example, taken product out of its packaging, and we obviously have sort of spoken a lot about that, particularly if you're handling food and accessories which are packaged. Sometimes just taking that product out of the package, if you get the opportunity, can be helpful. So asymmetrical works particularly well online. Great example of how you can use and create a composition on Instagram. Our other most popular composition, which is the repetition, which is our blocks of threes or kind of odd quantities, I think is quite evident online. You see a lot of websites where you're creating the sort of blocks of 3 icons or odd quantities of icons, tends to work particularly well. Same principles as we spoke about on some of our other classes, that if you are kind of sort of showcasing something, any product in a blocks of 3, our eye always seems to have a central focal point, which helps to then sort of focus our eye, and then our eye can frame onto the other 2 either side. So if we're trying to always keep this kind of sort of odd quantity, I think helps to make the product selection on the page smaller for the customer. I think if you were to start to look at maybe say mass market fashion retailers, let's say off the top of my head, brands like ASOS, and you might just want to have a look at their website. If you were to click on, say, dresses, for example, they probably, I think they use about kind of 6 icons of product, up to 6 icons of product. In some areas they use 4, but it just feels as if you haven't got you haven't got any clarity of what to look at. It feels often that there's too much product to look at, and it's obviously very hard for the customer to make their choice. So try to, if you can, implement the odd quantity element online. I think that works particularly effectively. Also, all of this is quite a good example. So this is a brand menu for a purely a kind of online brand who trades online. And all of this was quite interesting to have a look at the analytics of the conversions of where customers are clicking on when we look at this kind of sort of brand menu. And very similar to the areas we've explored on some of our other classes, we've always been talking about obviously this central point of focus, which kind of goes back to our pyramid, taking the eye to the top of the pyramid and creating that sort of first point of focus. So that's our kind of main focal point. When we start to look at the analytics of this online, you tend to see that most conversions will come through from this middle piece. So this could be a brand, it could be product images, as you see here. I would kind of imagine if we looked at it here, you'd probably see that you'd have quite a lot of conversions coming through from this product as well. It tended to be that you had the most popular conversions in the middle. You then had more popularity after that on the right hand side. So it seemed to be from the analytics that the eye is going in the middle and then onto the right hand side. And then our last area of conversions that you see the least amount is on the left hand side. So I thought that was quite interesting because all of you would have looked at the class when we looked at customer flow in store. And a lot of our typical retailers, supermarkets, food markets tend to also have this kind of, kind of encouraging the customer to come in, to come, into the middle, turn right and shop anti-clockwise. So we kind of naturally feel quite comfortable with coming in and turning right and having this anti-clockwise flow. So this is quite interesting that we're also seeing the same kind of shopping patterns online too. So we were seeing the popularity in the middle and then to the right, then to the left. So you might want to think about or consider what brands and what products you're actually placing in those locations. So for example, if we're looking at kind of push and pull, so a push brand, which would be something that probably here would be not so popular brands, so like Armani or Polo, whereas brands like the Gucci, Burberry were more of the kind of pull brands for this particular company. So, you know, they kind of found that customers were coming on sort of to look for those sort of pull brands. Well, if we're placing those pull brands in the middle, that kind of makes it very much more easier for the customer to find those brands and to convert through to those pages. So we want to think about the customer flow element to put something in front of them first, just before they go and look for those pull brands, because, you know, evidence has shown that customers will always look for those pull brands. So if we were to put, say, Armani or Polo in the middle, it would then perhaps, you know, create the kind of pattern that people are then flowing to those pages first before they're going to their pull brands. And it would be exactly the same in regards to all of these pictures here. So for example, just say home accessories was the product you kind of really wanted to push, then obviously putting it in the middle is perfect, because we're always going to create the priority in the middle because of how we look at the pattern of product. So, you know, try and keep that in mind as well. Alternation. I think alternation personally works particularly well online because it kind of gives us some clarity in between products. So I've shown this here in regards to alternation of color. So you can use alternation of color. You can also use alternation of texture or alternation of sort of variety of different products if you feel that kind of works for you. Anna, who I've taken this screenshot of her website, she was a private client of mine. And if you sit back a little bit, because it's quite pale, but you can kind of see she's got these blue squares just behind. So another way that you can bring alternation into the concept online is if you were to create a kind of background square to the product, you could have, say, blue square, pink square, for example, blue square. So you can change the alternate the colors there if you can't alternate the actual colors of the product. I've got another client who I work with who alternated. So you had flat shot of product on a white background. Then the product in the middle was more of a kind of lifestyle shot. And then the product on the other side was again a screen, a sort of flat shot against a white background. So even the coordination of how you're taking the kind of picture and creating more of a fun lifestyle shoot in the middle can then create that alternation pattern, as well as help to draw the eye to the product in the middle. So that's an example of that, and we can talk more about that as we go through. So I'm now going to talk about how you create a virtual shop window online. So all of this is quite a key location if we're looking at e-commerce, but it's also a great location that you can then connect up to promotions or events that you're doing in store. So from obviously some of our other classes, you can see that obviously areas or elements or product brands that we're maybe displaying in the hotspot area, or in your entranceway if you're creating a kind of entrance dressing to your garden centre, you can then maybe kind of connect up all those themes. So for example, just say you're creating something for spring, obviously the shop window online can also have those same elements. So from a customer's point of view, you've got those key messages actually being repeated all the way through to your customer. So I'm just going to sort of show you some examples. So the area to create your online virtual shop window should be the top header banner. So all of this is Anna's example here. So the top header banner, whether you're a customer who's looking at your website online via a computer screen, whether it's a smartphone or an iPad, the header banner is going to be the first area that the customer is going to come across. So this kind of acts like your top of your pyramid, if you like. So that's the focal point of the page. Making sure that you've got a strong concept. So this could be a graphic banner, as we see here. It could be a nice shot of some products. I think some of the other examples is some product shots. It could even be maybe some pictures of how you've dressed something in store, if you want to then kind of sort of link the customer through to the product. But obviously all of this header banner is the first area the customer is going to look at. And I would say most customers on average are accessing the online content a lot quicker than they are coming in store. So where we would maybe change a window in store maybe every 4 weeks, I think you kind of need to look to add kind of new content to that header banner, maybe approximately every 2 weeks. You can also link all of this to your Instagram page. So social media channels, whether you're using Facebook, whether you're using Instagram, try to connect the whole thing up so you've got that kind of sort of consistency across all channels, all online channels as well as in-store channels. It's really useful if you can have a bit of a plan of the type of things that you would like to have on the header banner. So I would usually work with clients and try to get them to plan out more of a kind of monthly promotional calendar so they can, you know, kind of analyze what they want to sort of focus on. Usually most of the activity, whether it's a brand, whether it's a promotion, whether it's a concept or product in this area, should be a push area, because this is the first area that customers are going to come to. So think about obviously products and brands which are new and seasonal to promote in that space. So your header banner, perfect example of creating your shop window online. What I would like to do is just come to this point actually, and then we'll obviously come back about how we can then convert sales from the header banner to the product. But I just wanted to point out, this is obviously again a screenshot of Harrods. Harrods have their top header banner that works as like a carousel. A lot of clients who I've worked with have either used, maybe if they're a smaller client, they use just a header banner, which is more static, keeps in place. You can usually interact from that header banner, which we'll obviously talk about. And then I work with other clients who will use their header banner as a carousel. And what's interesting, when you start to look at kind of analytics, a lot of, and I've put it here, a lot of customers were actually converting or coming off of the header banner after the first 2 images. So on average, most carousels will take about 5 images and will obviously kind of sort of rotate them. So just having a look at that, I would then prioritize your first 2 images on that carousel, which are brands or promotions that you really want to try to, you know, sort of promote to your customers as a priority, because image 3, 4 and 5 tends to be something that not everyone will hold on that page to be able to try and view. So you might need to think about that and have a look at, you know, how it's working for you on your analytics. So I'll come back now and we'll just sort of have a look at obviously how we can then convert sales. So obviously we were talking a lot on some of the other courses about the importance of, if we're creating a sort of display or hotspot, making sure that you've got that kind of connection for the customer to understand how they can sort of purchase those products or find those products and shop those products as easily as possible. So it's like this see it, like it, buy it element. So a couple of things which I thought kind of work particularly well. Lots of brands will implement like a little icon, as we see here. So this is an example from Children's Salon, where they've actually put sort of, you know, icons over the product on the header banner. So as a customer, you clearly know how you can click from that product and then actually be converted on the page. If you look at brands like kind of Liberty, Selfridges, when you click on the header banner, it won't have any icons, but it will kind of then sort of link you straight to those pages. So try, if you can, to have the connection of the product so that the kind of customer can click on that product and be taken straight to the page. If they can be taken straight to that product individually, it seems to be more of a kind of call to purchase. So you see more purchases coming out from that technique. So this was just an example of how we can obviously kind of then sort of convert sales. Also, if you're looking at Instagram, Instagram also has the kind of sort of tabs now, which you can include over the product. So you can also then take your customer from the Instagram post and then connect the customer straight to the product as the point of purchase. I've included Etsy on here because all of this was an example from a brand called This Girl Is Mighty, Heather Elliott. So if you are thinking about Etsy as well, just a very quick technique on this. Etsy, you can't obviously change the quantity of icons on Etsy. It's more like a sort of template area. But obviously you've got the ability to be able to move product around. Just to explain to you about what Heather has implemented here, Heather has created header banners for all of her ranges of products. So she's got about 8 ranges of product here. I got her to create a header banner for each type of product, and I got her to kind of brand it and then color block it. And then in the header banner itself, I've got her to put the whole selection of the product. So it could either be individual product shots, or it could be a product shot that maybe is like a kind of asymmetrical group. And then under the header banner, you can actually change around and interchange the featured items. So I asked Heather to put together all of the items from part of that range, which are obviously highlighted in her header banner. So again, the customer only has to scroll down so far to be able to find those products. Prior to this, Heather was showing on her sales that her customers would buy just individual items. So she had it all listed under kind of mugs or pencils or notebooks, pencil cases. So, you know, she was creating sort of individual product items rather than looking into it as a whole range. After she created more of this package where it's really highlighting this product as a range, she saw an increase in customers actually putting multiple products in her basket. So that is obviously, you know, kind of again, really positive. Just a quick example about Etsy. And then consistency of product message, which we were talking about earlier on. I think it's really important if you can try to get, you know, whatever's happening in store also being talked about, replicated online too. So this is an example of some panettones, which are beautiful tinned panettones from Hereford, and they have been obviously talking about them quite a lot on their Instagram, also in store, but also on their website. So all of this is an example of their post that they posted on Instagram, which is actually a picture of them in a display, in a merchandising display in store. So this is just also another example that actually your pictures, you know, they don't have to be these studio shots. They could just be some really nice pictures of your displays in store. And then when you clicked on the Instagram post, they obviously had a little tab on each one, but it took you straight through to the website so that, you know, you can then make that purchase on all of those products. So I just thought all of that was quite a kind of, you know, great sort of example of how they've kind of sort of brought that whole message all the way through. Also, we can look at really big retailers as examples from this. So obviously brands like On, where they will create a kind of like new range of trainers or new product launch, and the product launch is kind of implemented consistently across all channels. So here we go, here we've got the shop window installation. We've also got the example of how it looks on their Instagram and their website, so that, you know, you've kind of created not only a consistency of message for the customer, but you're also making that, you know, your brand or that brand of product actually have a little bit more of a premium kind of strength and premium feel to it as well. Okay. So some really good ones to have a look at is obviously some brands like Selfridges, Liberties tend to do, you know, a kind of really good job with obviously converting customers over to being able to look at their online content, as well as talk lots about what's going on in store. So this is just an example of their pop-up shop, which is their corner shop, where they highlighted Pen Gala last year. And you know, it's just a really great concept that you can obviously see pictures again of the merchandising. And then as you went across, this was on Instagram, as you went across to their website and their e-commerce site, then obviously it was kind of one of the main icons on the top header banner. So, you know, there's lots of examples you can go and sort of research out there as examples to that. Also, as we've talked about, Instagram is kind of great now because you can more or less tab each product, so you can then bring your customers over. And actually, a really good example is Yarnton Home and Garden Centre, who do a really good job actually of kind of you know, putting tabs on their Instagram images of product, which can then easily take the customer over to the page online. What I would recommend as well, if you've shown a product as a group, so this is just an example from an independent retailer, they've obviously taken this shop where it's a whole selection of product. We've obviously got here water bottle, scarf, flip-flop, hat, and the holiday bag. And it's really nice if you can then tab those links on the product. So for example, and I'm going to just cross over again here just for a minute, just to show you this as we're talking. So for example, if you were taking a person over who'd looked at that post and they wanted to buy into the handbag, you'd take them over to the handbag from that tab. So this would be the kind of like icon of the handbag. And on quite a lot of e-commerce sites, you have the ability to be able to then add kind of coordinating items, or, you know, all of this item would look great kind of with, or pair this item with. And then possibly the other items that we've already looked at on the Instagram page could be presented on the page for the customer here alongside the product, so the customer can more or less have the opportunity to upsell that package of product. And all of that is how it would, you know, usually convert in store, as we know. So that's just a kind of idea to be able to sort of think about maybe implementing all of this, you know, even if it's product that you're showcasing online as a package, and then sort of bringing them over to the page where the customer can have the opportunity to put all of that into their basket. So that's a link selling one there. Let me just go back. Also, I think one of my key things, particularly, you know, obviously Instagram is extremely creative, and most of those posts and pictures, they tell obviously stories of product or tell stories about sort of events or promotions that's happening in store. So we are seeing a lot of dressing of product on that channel, but I think it's also quite nice to then bring that to your e-commerce site too. So all of this is just an example of Anna's product, who we looked at earlier on. And it was Anna's that I was talking through the example of the alternation where you had a flat shot, lifestyle shot, flat shot of product. So the actual lifestyle shot in the middle could work really nicely, you know, just having maybe a different colored background, maybe bringing in a little bit of texture that is kind of, you know, implemented in the product, showing how the product kind of works. So the kind of purpose of the product as well. You know, anything like that just seems to give more theatre and more interest to the product. And it kind of creates as near to a sort of experience of you shopping that product online as you'd have in store. And I think Liberty particularly is a good one who, you know, creates that atmosphere of their store particularly well online, if you want to have a look at that. The picture on this right hand side here is of Yarnton. This is one of their pages which you can currently see, but I just like how their kind of candles, you know, have just got a little bit more greenery to them, just a bit more texture. You know, it's quite an interesting kind of wooden surface, you know, so it's just making the product look a little bit more aspirational rather than just showing a screenshot of that product. And I particularly like how they've got, again, the product taken out of its packaging, as we saw with the example from Harrods, and the candle is lit. So it just brings a bit more ambience into that kind of campaign as part of that product. Okay, we are just going to look at the online product presentation now. So how can we kind of sort of create a bit more interest with how we showcase our product online, and how can we create sort of that link selling and that same kind of experience that the customer would obviously be able to experience in store in regards to looking at products all together, looking at aspirational sort of displays, and you know, being able to see clearly how they can create those products in their own home. So let's have a look at that now. So key points is obviously, as we've talked about, creating the 3 principles. I would recommend, if you can, having those 3 principles. So it could be like 3 icons of product, as we've seen, and also obviously just creating the kind of main impact in the middle. So all of this is just an example where obviously all of this brand has used 3 icons. But we can see here that our eyes being kind of pushed over to this left-hand side because the product image feels like it's really too top heavy. So have a think about how you're photographing your product and try to make sure that the picture or the background or the colors that you use, the impact is kind of evenly placed. And obviously here, as an example, this picture would look much more centralized in the middle. So have a think about the actual placement of products. And I've put here that obviously our eye can focus much more clearly on sort of symmetrical shapes and patterns. So always keep that in mind. So product placement. So as an example with Anna's, Anna had her 3 icons of product underneath her header banner. Now, obviously, from her header banner, we can see that sale is her most important sort of item of product or sort of product area. So just by placing that in the middle, we automatically concentrate on that product first. So as I said earlier on, any sort of priority of product, any push product, place in the middle. Anna found from looking at her analytics that her tote bags, which are on the left, is her most popular product. So she saw this as product that people are always going to kind of come to her website for. They kind of sell themselves. So her tea towels was something that she kind of wanted to push more because she saw kind of a sort of, you know, a lack of sales in that area, and maybe an opportunity to be able to push those products slightly more than her tote bags, which would be classed as her pull product. So you have your kind of push product in the middle, which is your priority number 1. Then your priority number 2 is on the right hand side. And then our pull product would be on the left hand side, which on the analytics has shown that we tend to look on the left last. So have a look at this, have a look on analytics, you'll be able to analyze this and be able to maybe change product around and analyze it again and look at how it works. But, it would be really interesting to be able to see what the impact is. So Anna had kind of implemented this and found that had really helped to kind of convert more interest onto her tea towels and to sale, which is obviously brilliant. So obviously, again, really considering the kind of upsell at the most priority of the placement of products. So obviously here, Aylesford, great example, they've put their most expensive product on the left hand side. Surely this would be something that would be a great example to have in the middle to be able to really push that product. Okay. As we looked at this earlier on. So this is an example from Net-a-Porter. Now, even though all of this is a brand that sells high fashion, it's quite a good one if you want to have a look at product layout and how, the kind of sort of customer's journey works online. They've also got some really good editorial content too. So that's quite a good one to have a look at. So this is a great example, as we've just talked about, in regards to having the product, the icon of the product on the page. And then alongside her, you've got the list of, say, 3 products that would coordinate with the product on the right. I've worked with brands who have used the product, the extra product underneath. And I think often you'll find, because that's on the same line level on the eye, you tend to look at it more. Whereas I'm hoping, here we go. All of this is an example where a brand has placed their related product or kind of coordinated product underneath. Now, if you were looking at this on a screen, now I've obviously opened up this screen to be able to take the shot of the whole page, but if you're looking at it particularly on a smartphone, and obviously we all know our sort of screen size is particularly small. If you're looking at it on a smaller screen, it tends to be that you've got a lot of scrolling to actually get from this picture kind of at the top to the product underneath. So often just by having the product at the side, as we see here with sort of this example, I feel as a customer, you tend to look at it more, but you're also more kind of sort of engaged with that whole package of it. So that could also kind of be worth trying out. Also, I would probably maybe approximately 3 key items that could be coordinated. So if you think about garden furniture, we could do parasol, cushions, we could do throw, for example. I would place those products in product priority order through the page. So here is also quite a good example of how we're prioritizing the order of product via price. So obviously from all of this particular brand's point of view, the handbag that we see here would be the top priority. So here we see the kind of push through to the pull. Okay, so we're kind of sort of seeing it in order from the top to the bottom. So with this page here, this is an example where obviously all of this brand is showcasing and trying to sell their antique 4-seater round table and chair set on the website. And they've got a whole series of images of the product there where you can have a look at the close-up shots. And then when we scroll underneath, all of this is the related product that we currently see on this page. So, have a think about, are these the kind of right products to be able to push as part of this product? Because I feel here there are a lot of opportunities which are missed when I think if I can read that correctly, I think that whole set is like nearly £3,000. So quite typically, the customer who's going to be kind of purchasing that is the customer also who could potentially upspend into all different areas. And I feel all of those products underneath should be more tailored to products that can be used directly kind of with that product. So I'm just going to pause there, but if you could write down perhaps maybe 3 products that you would prioritize in that area, on that page, to be able to really help the customer understand how they can use that as a package. I'm just going to pause for a minute, and then I'll talk you through the suggestions that I have. So I would probably recommend parasol. This could have a beautiful parasol. This could have a really nice outdoor rug underneath it, which would just frame that whole product off. We could also sell cushions and throws, and we could also have the opportunity on top of the table to sell some really nice tableware, table linen. So there is lots of opportunities which could really be kind of targeted here, and actually product that's more relatable to the product which is being sold. And this one here as well. I kind of thought all of this is a great opportunity for the 3 products underneath to maybe be products that could be helping the customer to understand how they can care for that plant. So you might want to think about chems and ferts, pots. It could be kind of sort of gardening equipment, accessories, gloves, anything that you feel is part and parcel of that whole product. But I think maybe just some more information about how you can actually care for that product on that page could be in line with how we're merchandising and how we're trying to implement that actually in the garden centre as well. Okay, we're going to just talk about brand stories and ethos. So this is a really important element, and obviously it has been something we've been talking about, trying to communicate to your customers in store too. A great principle of how you can try to sort of visually explain your brand stories and ethos online via your social channels and also your e-commerce site. All of this one here is a brand I work with called Earth Squared, and all of this is one of their graphics that they use on their homepage, and all of this is all the ladies that make all their produce. So all of their bags, all of their kind of accessories can be linked back to a person, so you know who's made your bag, and they have some sort of great little stories about those ladies too. And all of this is also talked about quite heavily on their Instagram page as well. Talking more about the product and sort of where the products come from, we're kind of sort of seeing the popularity of lots of more eco-friendly, sustainable furniture, pots as well, so anything that has quite an aspirational appeal or aspirational sort of story, make sure you're including that online. And that could be from a series of pictures or maybe short videos or interviews with maybe some of your suppliers to be able to create the interest for your customer. And all of these things, all of these elements are creating the same kind of communication and experience that your customers are also being able to experience in store too. We were talking a lot about PlantSnap, which has obviously partnered with Evergreen. But, if you've got any apps that you are trying to use in store, trying to also then connect that online too, can be particularly quite helpful. So I feel as a customer, if we're talking about maybe planting on on a page online, perhaps maybe adding a link to online applications like PlantSnap, or just having kind of more information about, sort of gardening tips and techniques can be, particularly helpful for customers, and this could be not just with gardening. If you've got a sort of food hall, this can convert food to this area too, if you want to integrate recipes, or sort of introduce customers to, some of your local sort of food suppliers. So, in store, maybe working with QR codes, we are seeing lots of retailers now who are really kind of trying to implement more QR codes, not just kind of in their windows, but also in store too, to be able to try to link that element to the in-store to the online too. So we're kind of sort of converting, and I've put here, this also tries to link the digital interaction into the physical in-store. So that's quite a key point. And I think this is a good example, of how we can integrate those apps online. So the multi-sensory experience is something I've been talking a lot about on all my other courses, trying to create maybe more of that kind of in-store experience online. Daylesford have created some great pages if you want to have a look at them for inspiration, where they're kind of talking not just about their product, but they're also talking about events which are maybe held kind of on site. So they've got their kind of cookery school here as well. And obviously a lot of the classes are held in their farm shop, but they also run a lot of online events too, which have been extremely popular. Even as we said on the last slide, integrating maybe a bit of video content, which is kind of, offering tips on kind of gardening, planting, crafting, all of that can create a much more diverse content online for your customers. Yarnton Home and Garden Centre tend to also implement quite a lot of live tips on their Instagram page. So if you want to have a look at that for inspiration, all of that's also a great example of a HTA member who is implementing that online and creating this kind of online multi-sensory experience. So let's just take us over to the next page to have a look at how this works online. So all of you will be familiar with obviously this kind of plan, which we looked at on one of our live classes. So for this exercise, I've turned it around the opposite way. So we've got the kind of entrance, if you like, at the top, but also we're taking our customer through the page to the bottom of the page. So online, you tend to find that customers, well, I've found from kind of working with lots of online companies, I feel customers are much more kind of not so much time short, but people tend to be more impatient online than they are in store. Whereas somebody may walk around or may try and find something in store, online it really feels like our customer sort of shopping habits just feels like customers want to be able to find and shop those products even quicker than what they can in store. So if you're not taking your customer through to the right page quick enough, or they can't find that product that they've seen maybe advertised on your kind of Instagram post, or they have to scroll down lots of content on the page, it seems to then, when you look at the analytics, create this kind of click off kind of conversion rather than clicking on. So to help you to think about the order of product on the page, to be able to create this kind of flow of customers through the page, if we can consider some of the points we would usually consider in store. So we talked about it in like 4 zones. So we said the kind of zone 1, which I'll point to now, is our kind of platinum area. So this is our main push area, which is usually obviously the front of the store. So that usually contains our hotspot or your shop window, but it's the first area that the customer is going to focus on. So usually in store, we kind of usually say hotspot. Online, we're looking at the header banner at that point. So our top banner, which we looked at earlier on, all of that is your main point of interest. So that's a push area. That is the first area your customers going to come to. Zone 2 is also part of push. So I'm just going to move down the cursor so you can see where I'm going. Zone 2 is also part of push. So all of that should connect up to obviously the product or the promotion that you're talking about in your top header banner. Area number 3 is the central area on the page. Sometimes you do find that you tend to see more heavier content in that sort of middle, which you typically tend to see on the shop floor as well. Usually zone 3 is more about your core information, core merchandise, for example. And then we get to zone 4, which typically, like how we tend to actually see this being used in store, is usually the hardest place to be able to pull your customers to. So if this was in store, all of this would be our typical kind of rear, sort of back corner areas of the shop floor that people tend not to want to go to unless they've got a reason to go to them. So all of this is our area where we would have our pull. So this could be pull product. However, online, you tend to find with e-commerce, it tends to be more pull information. So quite a lot of brands have the information about how you can kind of contact them and how you can obviously follow them on social media. Some of them will also have like a 10% online sign up, so you can sign up to their sort of newsletters. You can pre-book tables in the restaurant, for example, opening time. So any kind of pull information is worth having at the bottom, just because a lot of customers will be coming on specifically for that information. So let's just have a look at some examples of this. So this is an example of Yarnton, where they've got their kind of header banner, which is introducing them to new season. In with the new, it says here. So this is a great example of a header banner where it's introducing the customer to their kind of new season product following on from Christmas. So all of this is inspirational interiors at Yarnton Home. So this is quite a good example of a current header banner, which is kind of in line with kind of, sort of current trends. Then underneath, we've got the new and sort of product that's kind of come in. So here again, we've got the sort of Burford example, but you can see it's titled. So this sort of sits under their header banner, and this is all the product which is new in. So all that kind of newness is here. So that also, as we've just said, zone 2 also is part of the push area. Zone 3. Core merchandise. I think planting, you can easily see core merchandise. So at the moment, we've got the early spring garden flowers, which I would say most customers are going to come on and would, you know, are kind of interested to be able to sort of see those products. So that kind of makes up for our kind of sort of zone 3. Zone 4. So I've got a couple of sort of examples here. This is from Yarnton, and their sort of area at the lower part of their page has got quite a lot of information. So this kind of works as like their blog, really. So every couple of weeks you get some new content on there, and it will talk about kind of events and what's happening in store, and you can also sign up for events as well. And then when we look at all of this one here from Burford, we've got the online sign up, we've got the opening times, we've got the job opportunities, we've also got the carousel of their Instagram, which actually kind of sort of helps to create that pop of color and that interest on the kind of lower part of their page. So if you can treat your kind of end of your page, zone 4, as your pull area, not so much for your pull products, but for kind of pull information that, you know, all your customers are going to want to come in and try and find. So all of these 2 examples here are some great examples of some great pull information to place at the location at the lower part of your page. So I hope you have enjoyed this class workshop. As always, if you do have any questions or if you want to try out any of these trends and techniques on your own e-commerce site and also looking at your social channels, I am obviously always happy to answer your questions. Email all of those in, or you can contact me via the Mighty Network app. Hope you have enjoyed this workshop. Thank you very much. Holly, I hope that was all right. I